Hi, I'm Debbie Atuk. I'm a Bering Straits Native Corporation shareholder and a portfolio specialist for Skyview Investment Advisors. Welcome to this series of interviews that I'm doing to explore the economic opportunity and challenges for business development in Alaska. Please be sure to watch through to the end for an important disclaimer. Today I'm speaking with Nancy Andrews, CEO of St. Mary's Native Corporation. St. Mary's is located in southwest Alaska on the, I didn't ask you about this, Andreevsky River, 5 miles north of the Yukon, and is 450 air miles from Anchorage. St. Mary's is a community of 550 people, and the Native Corporation has 300 shareholders. Today, St. Mary's operates businesses in construction, manufacturing, and IT, and has an office in Anchorage that's been there since 2012. Thank you for being here, Nancy.
Koyana, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to be talking to you because you've built an impressive corporation from a pretty remote area in relative to Alaska, but relative to the lower 48. I mean, Alaska's remote, and then within Alaska, your community is relatively remote. So I want to talk today about federal contracting and how complicated that is and how you've navigated that. My understanding is that it requires quite a complicated bid and proposal process to win federal contracts. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about some of the resources that you used to begin to win federal contracts, like maybe the SBA or PTAX, and how they helped you.
Okay. Yeah, it was a process to get 8A certified, and it started off, with the working with the board of directors and shareholders and letting them know, that's our path that we're taking the corporation. So we're very fortunate to have, a board of directors that are open to having new ventures, and because that was not always the case. So
if I can interrupt you for a second, then because you had businesses in St. Mary's prior to federal contracting, so would you say that there was a process of getting your management and your board comfortable with moving business away from home?
Yes, we had residential and commercial leasing. So we have, the AC stores are building in St. Mary's, and we have a couple offices and duplexes and houses. And then, we wanted to grow, and with St. Mary's, like all small communities, we have limited, slow internet like everybody does. And if you want to grow, you have to be in the business center of Alaska, which is Anchorage, and we opened our office in 2012. But we had, we used a lot of resources and free to low cost, and those are like the Small Business Development Center, the PTAX, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, Native PTAC. SBA was a huge help. That they have a lot of resources right online, and then Minority Business Development Agency, and those are just some of the resources that we used, and then the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise.
I'm so glad that you mentioned these resources because, in my opinion, not enough people know about these. If you want to start an 8A business, you really need to know about these specific agencies. They're there to help us start these businesses, right?
Right. And, it's important if you're wanting to grow your company, and these, a lot of state and federal agencies are there to help you. And they really, we go to conferences and other conferences that help. We go to the National 8A Association. There's the summer and winter conference. The summer is here in Anchorage, and the winter, goes in different cities in the lower 48. We have the Alaska Native Village Corporation Association, which is very helpful resource too, and I'm on the board of directors for that association.
Congratulations on that. I think that has been, the resurgence of the ANVCA has been a really good resource for our village ANCs to begin to become more, have access to more information, to do more, to network more, to talk about, I've been to quite a few of the conferences lately, and it's the best time to get together with your peers and talk about what you're working on.
Yes. And, we're looking to have the village corporations be successful and the protection of our land. So there's, there's local, state, and federal priorities, and advocacy, of course. We're always trying to protect what we have, and in government contracting, that's always changing, because government contracting 8A was not, it's different 10, 15 years ago than what it was, even 2 years ago. It's one thing you could always depend on is change. But with other conferences, there's like the Native American Contractors Association, the Alaska DBE and Contractors Conference, the Society for American Military Engineers, the SAMI. So a lot of those have the industry experts, subject matter experts, whether they're contracting officers, federal agencies. They have industry, the commercial, the contractors who are speaking. And, I just go there and I'm like, I really want to learn and grow the corporation. So I'm just like a sponge trying to, take all the information, because when we were first starting, I was like, oh my gosh, we're going down this path. And I said, it's government contracting is its own culture in itself. And at first I used to think, I was like, oh, what if I get us debarred or suspended? And I was like, oh my gosh. So I tried to absorb as much information as I could. And with government contracting, you got to have a lot of good people around you. So I have a lot of smart people with me, and finance directors and general managers that have been in contracting and manage millions of dollars in contracts. And
in terms of finding those people that you rely on that are so helpful to you, have they been local hires, or have you had to do recruiting? And this isn't on our script. We didn't cover this question. It just occurs to me that you're talking about some people that have some specialized knowledge. At this point, I assume that they're not necessarily your shareholders, and hopefully someday they will be shareholder hires. But do you recruit first in Alaska and then outside, or how have you been able to staff those positions?
Well, we do put an open recruitment, and we do have, like, my COO, Susan Taylor. She's, my COO, but she's also have like $300 million in contract experience and, 20 plus years in the federal contracting world. So we're getting more and more of our own Native people than we did, a few years back. So we've got a lot more people, our Native people, whether they're Alaska Native or American Indian, that are coming into this federal space and working. Myself, I worked with Chalista's subsidiary, my regional corporation subsidiary in BD, and
that is something good to know. So there's an opportunity for, I'm just thinking aloud here, but for shareholders who might be interested in becoming involved with this part of the business, federal contracting, looking for opportunities at the regional corporations and then moving over to the village Native corporations where they can maybe have more opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And they do. Chalista has their interns in Huntsville, Alabama, and Hawaii, and all these in Anchorage and wherever they have we have a lot of interns. So that's a really great opportunity to have our young people, and so we're seeing a lot more as they're, coming on board to get familiar. And then within this space of the Alaska Native corporations, there's getting more, but the majority of our village corporations are not, in the government contracting. So I wanted, and I'm, talking holistically, I wanted to grow, and not only just in St. Mary's, because with our villages, and it's all over Alaska, a third of our shareholders are in the villages, about a third in the cities, and a third elsewhere. And with St. Mary's, a third, those other third are other rural areas mostly.
Do you find that those shareholders have different demands or expectations from the corporation, what they're looking for?
Jobs. Opportunity.
Dividends. Dividends.
Yes, dividends. Oh gosh. And we want to have a lot more of those, and you have to bring in the money and business opportunities to provide those. And we had to start off small. It was a while before, it's 8 years now that I've been with St. Mary's, but previously it was, the last dividend was in 2000, and then in 2015 we started having, a dividend, and
that's so good. I wanted to make sure that we covered a topic that we had discussed when we were outlining our discussion, what we could cover. One of the things that I learned about you is that you believe that the world's most valuable resource now is data and not oil. I'm paraphrasing. You have a picture on your door, and that basically says that. And I just want you to tell me why that's important to you and how you are moving St. Mary's Native Corporation forward with data.
Well, that's one of our, lines of businesses that we're moving toward, and you could see how important it is, especially with the pandemic. I've never used Zoom before this. Before the pandemic. But we're relying a lot more on the internet, and we see the limitations, especially in rural Alaska. But also, the government, I think they're relying more on it too, and moving forward with the times, and different. I'm not an IT person, so I can't really speak to it. I've got my general managers and subject matter experts in that.
I think it's a great area to get into. Obviously, it's a growth area. The picture, if you want to describe it.
So it looks like a whole platform of oil rigs, but instead of oil rigs, they're buildings, and built on those buildings are the Googles and the Amazon, and it's all data. And so
and this was a cover from The Economist.
TheEconomist.com, yes.
Yeah, so I think that's great. I think that getting your corporation into contracts that are more data-driven in the knowledge industry, it's higher value contracts, in my opinion. So it's very strategic. So kudos to you for getting your corporation, putting yourself there in that space. I try to keep these to about 20 minutes because I think that's about how long the average person's attention span is for something like this. So if we could just end, you touched on this a little bit already, but if you could just talk about some of the opportunities for your young people in your region to become involved with St. Mary's Native Corporation, and would they necessarily have to move to Anchorage or to a contract outside, or can they stay home and be involved? what do you have right now to offer to the young people?
Well, I'd love to have opportunities for shareholders and descendants back home. And, we offer scholarships and training funds so that, and we've had internships here in St. Mary's Native Corporation, but also with our mentor in Hawaii. He has like 17 interns. So
I want to be an intern in Hawaii.
I know. So I had asked him if we could have, our shareholders or descendants that are interested, and he said yes. And so college graduates who, want to work with the corporation, any of our lines of businesses that are in line with contracting, there's opportunity for that. But what I also want to do is also plant the seeds, not just, in the high school or, younger adult that are growing, but plant the seeds when they're younger in the school and say, you could do whatever you want, whether it's working in a corporation, general manager, or CEO. I'd love to have a CEO replacement with a shareholder or descendant, but anything that they want to do, because our Native people, and this is all over Alaska, and they have that entrepreneurial spirit. And then, if you're talking about government contracting, we're talking today about ANCs contracting with the federal government, but then there's also, individuals that could be individual 8A, and there's, no reasons that they could have their own businesses, and then we could work with them.
Absolutely. And some of the resources that you mentioned are also available to individuals who would like to start their own business, like the SBA. Mm-hmm. And you, I think, could help them learn how to navigate those kinds of agencies and find the resources that they need. Well, this has been a really great conversation. I was so excited to meet you when we were at a conference, and I told you about my idea of having a region-wide summit for the Norton Sound region, and obviously that couldn't happen this year. But I wrote down all your ideas, and I'm going to steal them for the summit. I joke, and but hopefully we'll have a conference in 2021. Hopefully, and I hope that maybe you could come and be a speaker or a panelist and talk about some of these same things, but with the added element of an audience where people can ask you questions and not just me, because I think that we touched on quite a few things, but I think that people have a lot of questions about the things that you've learned, that you've taught yourself. So I want to thank you for being here, and hope to see you soon. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. I'll be in Alaska soon. Maybe I'll see you in Anchorage for a socially distant coffee or something.
Thank you.
And thanks for being here. Bye.